Hello and welcome to the Tea Party Hardy channel. Well, here's some surprising news for you from me. This is why I think Trump is going to lose the election. When I saw this story yesterday, it said the DNI declassified Brennan notes, the CIA memo on Hillary Clinton stirring up the scandal between Trump and Russia. A source said Brennan's handwritten notes were taken after briefing Obama on the matter. And it's covered on Fox. It's covered on, let's see, who's this? The Federalist. And there's the statue that's no longer allowed to be seen in front of the New York Metropolitan Museum. Breaking, DNI declassifies handwritten notes from John Brennan. That would be John Brennan. That would be Joe Biden. Most likely our next president for 15 minutes before Harris takes over. From John Brennan, 2016, CIA referral on Clinton campaign collusion. So I'll read you a little bit of this and then I'll tell you why Trump's going to lose. On Tuesday, Director of National Intelligence, DNI, John Ratcliffe, declassified and released to Congress handwritten notes from former CIA Director John Brennan, as well as CIA investigative referrals to James Comey and Peter Strzok, requesting that they investigate Russian knowledge of Hillary Clinton's anti-Trump collusion smear operations. And it's also covered over here on Just the News. Yeah, same story. Now, good news is, for Biden, that none of the networks or sleazy PBS will cover it. It will only be covered... Oh, wait, there's more. Oh, no, that's a different story. We'll get to that later. Preview. So here's why Trump's going to lose. And if I'm wrong, trust me, I'll be very happy. However, after the Civil War, when it came time to prosecute all of the Confederate soldiers, it didn't happen. Now, mostly that had to do with Lincoln. But the point being, the Confederates, who were the Democrats after all, Lincoln, first Republican president, so, yeah, same Democrats that started the Triple K organization and the Jim Crow organization and all those other lovely things in their history. None of them got prosecuted. Kind of okay with that for the Civil War because it was Lincoln's point, that was, and quite rationally so. If we prosecute our brothers that have returned to us, then the war technically didn't end. We're still fighting them and we're still punishing them. It actually makes a lot of sense in a Civil War. Then we go, flash forward a few years, to the American Indian Wars. And in the American Indian Wars, you have all of these high-ranking soldiers brought up on charges for doing severe atrocities to the American Indians that were completely against the law. And you've got the case with Black Kettle, you've got... There's way too... Black Kettle's is the most egregious, though. Because speaking of Lincoln, he had the flag from Lincoln that Lincoln gave him and said, hey, we're all good now. And he's like, yay. And you look up the situation with Black Kettle. It's awful, awful, awful. And Black Kettle was a man, if you don't know the American Indian history. So I'm tired. Okay, so none of them got prosecuted. Well, that is to say, well, a couple got prosecuted, but they wiped all the charges. Then you go a few more years to the future, and you get to the end of World War I. If you're not familiar with the last day of World War I, November 11th, from midnight till 11 in the morning, the good old-fashioned 11/11/17, look it up. There's a documentary made by BBC called The Last Day of World War I, and there's a History Channel documentary called The Last Day of World War I. One's from the British point of view and one's from America's point of view. I'll let you figure out which is which. But they both show, once again, the enormous atrocities of, believe it or not, the British generals to the British soldiers, and the American generals, ironically, to the American soldiers in that last few hours of the war. It was horrific what they did to their own men. And just like right now, with the situation with Russia, that the Dems dragged their feet for year after year after year, but nonetheless, they finally get all the evidence, and this happened again. Civil War, American Indian Wars, World War I, and it's happening all over again. You get all the evidence, you get ready to prosecute it, and the election comes and the other guy wins and they just wipe it away. So, historically speaking, we all know that Democrats never, ever, 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 ever have to pay a legal price, with the exception of Chicago. Oh, the amount of governors they've sent to jail. So excluding that, we've seen Hillary Clinton walk for 25, 30 years. We've seen her husband walk for 25, 30 years. All of the charges that went against them all just magically disappear. Or to quote Hillary, what do you mean, wiped them with a cloth? Apparently we do. And now we're seeing it all over again. So the reason I think Trump is going to lose is because if he were to win, then for the first time in American history, the Dems would be brought to prosecution. They would finally, for the very first time, have to face the legal system. And it doesn't look pretty for them. What about Richard Nixon? He got prosecuted, and so did the people that were under him. Yeah, well, he was a Republican. He was a lousy Republican, but he was a Republican. Why was he lousy? Oh, I don't know. OSHA, EPA, affirmative action, the space... Wait, I like the space shuttle. Okay, scratch the space shuttle. I like the space shuttle. Yeah. So that's why I think he's going to lose, because if he wins, they're going to prosecute all these people. Draining the swamp will finally happen so that stuff like this isn't allowed to continue. Where the prosecutors drop the trespassing charges against the BLM trespassers, but indict the McCloskeys for defending their home. Yeah, this is what America has to look forward to, because there's no way that Washington, D.C. is going to let this declassified memo hang them all that shows, dude, for 3 months before the election, the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton were targeting and spying and infiltrating Trump's campaign. You realize with 1 month to go, to do a fair comparison, that means we have to go back 2 months. If for the last 2 months Trump had been doing any of these things and still continuing them, and then have the media right there alongside to go, ooh, that Biden, that wascally Biden, he's in bed with Russia, or pick whatever fantasy delusion you want, because there never was evidence for Russia. There never, ever was. So, that would mean Trump would have already been doing it for 2 months. He didn't, but they did. Watergate was the break-in to the Watergate Hotel in order to spy on a few documents to see what Johnson was up to. Trump's had spies in his campaign. They wiretapped his phones. They did not wiretap his phones. They listened on his phones. Carter Page, the Greek fellow, can't remember his name, sorry. Apolopoulos. I know that's so rude, I'm sorry. Yeah, anyways, that's why I think he's going to lose. Because the swamp is not going to ever let their side do it. They didn't in the Civil War. They didn't in the American Indian Wars. They didn't in World War I. These are big deals. Civil War. You may not think much of the American Indian Wars, but dude, those lasted between 40 to 60 years, depending on which calendar you're using. I laugh all the time when I hear, Afghanistan is the longest war we've ever been in. Really? Tell that to the thousands and thousands and thousands of dead soldiers that fought for 60 years in the American Indian Wars. They beg to differ. This is what happens when you don't teach history. You get ridiculous, stupid, ignorant statements made like that. And World War I? Go back and look at what they did to those soldiers. I want to take a bath over there. No. not in 2 hours or in 3 hours when the war's over. I want to do it before the war's over. You go kill those pesky Germans, which they didn't call Germans in those days, they called them the Huns. You go kill them so I can take a bath there. But sir, there's only a couple of hours left until the war's over. Yeah, but I feel grungy. Oh, man. That's just one example. And they always win. The slime balls always win. But it rains on the just and unjust alike. Dude, it rains a lot more on the just than it does on the unjust. Because the unjust will steal your umbrella. And that's what's happening here. I did a story earlier about Governor Newsom saying, "We're in no hurry to open Disneyland." I showed you this story in this video. Prosecutors dropped the charges against the Black Lives Matter mob that did trespass, and they're going to prosecute the people that defended their home. This is the America we have to look forward to. Not to mention a lot higher taxes. And we're, as the Cuban fellow said at the Republican National Convention, where are we supposed to go now? Now that America has completely collapsed, where are we supposed to go now? All of the restrictions we've seen building on YouTube and Google and all the other places, Twitter, Facebook, with no one to stop them? Oh boy, here they come. Now I'm going to counteract it with this. And I don't know if I've made a video about this. I don't know if I've made a video about this or not, but I've been talking about it a lot at work, which is this. Now I'm going to do a 180. How is it that you can have the NBA fall apart in the ratings, the Emmys fall apart in the ratings, the Oscars fall apart in the ratings, movies making $0 at the theater? Okay, I'm exaggerating with the $0, but making really, really bad money. Tenet barely made any money, and it's the only thing playing in the theaters. And Mulan was a joke. You've got all these examples of Americans using their dollars and their eyeballs to say, we want nothing to do with your social justice garbage. And yet, we're told Biden's going to win. There's a disconnect there. How can all of pop culture, and I mean all of it, get slammed with get woke, go broke? Comic books dying, movies dying, all award shows dying, and yet Biden's going to win huge? I'm saying Biden's going to win because the fix is in. But it doesn't look at all, if you can put your money where your mouth is, like it doesn't make sense. If the people really loved Biden and what he stands for, then all those award shows that do nothing but trash Trump for hour after hour would have through the roof sky high ratings. And they don't. They have the worst ratings ever, just like the NBA Finals do. It doesn't make sense. So there's my 180. This is why Trump's going to lose. And all the horrible pop culture, sports tanking is why he's going to win. But this is different. This is way different. This isn't the people. This is the machine. You know, I looked up the etymology of the word machine. Do you know the etymology of the word machine is it comes from the political and then was moved from the political to the metaphor of engines when engines were invented hundreds and hundreds of years later. It's like, wow, that's interesting. So yeah, political machine is actually the origin of the word machine. It's politics. But the political machine has no they're not going to let the whole team go down. You heard Harris say tonight in the debate, all these hundreds and hundreds of generals and hundreds of insiders all say no, and the Bush people, no, Orange man bad, Orange man bad. That's the swamp, baby. And we've got documents all over the place showing the swamp is these guys, Obama, Clinton, Brennan, all of them are in. Not even neck deep. We're talking like the hair on their chinny chin chin and the hair on the top of their head deep. If he stays, Bill Barr stays, Durham stays, prosecutions go through, and it's going to be the first time in American history that the Dems finally have to pay in a legal way, since the voters never seem to want to get rid of them. Or, there's a ballot box across the street from my house. There's a ballot box right outside of my work, and there's nobody watching them. There's no securing them. There could be 20, 30, 40, 100 ballots all being dropped off by one person. Ballot harvesting galore. But hey, I'm in California, so it's totally legal. But the point being, those ballot boxes are not secure. Neither putting in nor taking out, no cameras. There is nothing watching them at all. Oh boy. There you go. That's why I think Trump's going to lose. I'll see you in the future.